Oh, I was waiting for a big. Woo.
I know. Mix it up a bit. Episode 7 of the latest series.
I can't believe it's episode 7 already. We're flying.
Well, and we've done 2 on the trot, which is
yeah.
Useful.
We're doing well now. We're doing well. We'll try and keep this going.
How's your week been?
How has my week been? It's been busy. We had a great weekend. Last week we went to camp in Loughborough, and that is an incredible facility with incredible people. We did some staff CPDs, player bonding. We didn't have a result that we thought we might be close to on Sunday, but we just had a good couple of days reflecting on what the positives were and where the mindset was going there, and that kind of stuff. So it's really good. And then that led into a busy week this week, and then I'm taking a couple of days holidays. So for those out in the sporting world, we know that build up into holidays means that you have more preparation done to take the time off. So yeah, good. How are you? How was your week?
Had a few days away. My interesting learning this week was, so my son, who's generally quite sport mad, will have a go at anything, or sulk if he's not very good at something, such as the life of an 8-year-old. We went to a friend's house, a family on one of the days, and they had a piano. And it really caught his attention, which, I mean, we don't have a musical bone in our body in this house.
Right.
So it's of limited environmental influence. And he was tinkering away on this piano. And then I thought, oh, okay, cool. That's quite interesting. He just wanted to go and bash and make some noise on there. And then we went to another one of the wife's family, and they also had a piano, to which he's gone straight to it. And the day before, my wife had used all of her grade 5 piano knowledge and taught him chopsticks, of course.
Yes, of course.
And so he'd remembered it from the day before, having never heard it or done anything with it before, played it the second day on the new piano, and then came to me and said, can I have your phone? So I was like, oh, he's giving up on the piano straight away. I want to download a piano app to teach myself to play the piano.
Wow.
So I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And now my YouTube feed is now full of piano tutorials where he has been watching videos and starting to teach himself songs.
My goodness. What? So keep going. What are you thinking? What are you thinking about that?
Well, I'm thinking I'm going to have to sell a kidney to buy a piano.
That's illegal in this country, by the way.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Or sell my child. Equally illegal. So yeah, like I don't know, but I'm interested to see if. So because we're a blended family, he's now gone to his mum's for 6 days. So it'd be really interesting to see if when he comes back, does he mention it again, or is it in the here and now moment for an 8-year-old? Or does he mention it again, maybe when he's flicking through YouTube and he sees some piano videos and then comes and says, can we buy a piano?
I love this.
But it will be interesting to see whether because he enjoyed it, will that drive his motivation? Or has he got some kind of motivation for it, which will then drive some enjoyment linked to success, etc. I'm not sure, but it'll be really interesting. It was my my observation of the weekend, or the week, sorry.
I love that. And I'm trying to think about it as you're saying it in relation to our world of sport. And I'm thinking about, well, I'm going to call it a chicken egg, and that doesn't do it any justice. But if as a coach, you support somebody with positive reinforcement to feel that level of mastery and autonomy, then the motive is driven to continue and to kind of want to do more. But also then, as you said there, is it a case, if it's a passion of theirs, do they put more time into it? So in this case, when you were talking, I was thinking it matters. It matters. it matters to him? And is it the fact that, you know, music, and so does sport, most sports have a beautiful level of craft and creativity as part of it. So, you know, he can create his own. Or was it that on the day people were like, oh, that was brilliant, well done, can you play that again? And that kind of like, oh yeah, thanks very much, this is something new and I'm really good at it.
Yeah.
But also then, is it linked to something where someone had this conversation before about gaming and how if I use my world of basketball, somebody might take 100 shots and then get a bit tired or get frustrated that they haven't scored 40 of them, even if they're just standing free throws. But you know, a lot of people might pick up an app on the phone that has a game on it or a console, and they might try 150 times in a blink, reset, next game, I'll try one more time, and they'll keep going. And is it, you know, I'm really fascinated to understand the mind of that person who's engaging around the feedback and the change of behavior that's happened over time. Is he's getting feedback really quick externally or from the music to say, that's what I wanted to sound like. But in his case, if he doesn't know what it sounds like and he just likes the keys. My sister's kids are like that. There's a piano at home in the house, and mom would take them into the piano in the morning and there's a drum kit. One would gravitate towards the piano and bam, 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 fingers going everywhere, not really a noise. They'd be like, look at me, you know. And the other one then would just be banging away one piece in the drum. Now they're different personalities, but what is it? What is it about the mattering part, you know, that's really interesting? At West Ham, we spoke about August being the month of motivation and understanding motivation as a whole, but understanding the motives of the people and not assuming that they're all going in one direction. So we have this umbrella term of a professional athlete, which I've mentioned a number of times, that has human beings inside it. But what are their individual motives? And we had some great chats over the last couple of weeks, and some people are building houses, some people are thinking about families, some people are on a cool journey at the start, middle of it. It's just, you know, the human inside getting out has plans as well, but how we might assume sometimes that people are in something for a reason and it's not really the same as the reason.
Cool, nice. Off topic already. So how did you choose that was important to understand? Why did you think it was important to understand the motives of different people? And then how did you go about kind of eliciting and pulling together that information?
Okay, so it links to a tweet this week where Adam Commons, I think is how you pronounce his name, is the HP director for Belgian hockey. And he talks about a long period of time, different levels of success, and gold medal being a measure of one. And he lists a thread of things around teams, successful teams. I don't think he uses the word successful, but have a look at this tweet. And in this tweet, I shared this with the team this morning, the work staff, and point number 9 is connection is more important than tactics. Now, if we leave out the end part of that, that's the part for me that's really important, is connection. Now, from an invasion point of view, you know, there's an easier example of connections on the pitch, connections to the environment that they're in, and understanding. He elaborates a little bit on the connection piece and says the connection is important in the overlap that he's seen in his time with the teams and in the organization. He said they spent a massive amount of time understanding what was important to each individual, the why of each individual. And last year at West Ham, I felt really strongly, even though my area of kind of interest and experience is quite vast in a number of areas, that actually the crux of it was care and connection in what I had the ability to control. Like, I mean, I'm not qualified to be doing on pitch technical stuff. And so we explored a number of different ways for people to have structured or organized interactions that led to organic ones. So we kind of fed off the back of that. And July's heading, even though we won't stop at it being, oh, we've done communication, now we're done. It was communication. We're just back. Some people were at Euros, some people had a busy summer, some didn't, some had injuries. So understanding the culture that exists, the new culture with players gone, the lingering excellence from last year still kind of stirring up some excitement, and then new players coming back. So we talked about communication, what that would mean from a language point of view, and blah, 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 ripple, ripple, ripple. We've talked about this before. So motives was important because we had that chat and we had that whisper that everybody wants to be an international, or everybody wants to get this out of it. And I said, let's not assume that. Let's have a chat about with the human beings that are in there about what they're enjoying in life at the moment, outside, inside, hobbies, social presence, influence. Some have new contracts with different brands and stuff. How cool and how exciting all this stuff is going on. And then we talked about the more formal structure of goal setting, but we used different words to try and evoke different types of conversations and looked at different ways that they could achieve them, and share them. So there's
Give us an example. What
yeah,
kind of things did you see?
yeah. So if you use, because there's a number of different IDPs, we've spoken about this, about the kind of, I don't know if autonomy is the right piece, but them driving it, but also when you present some sort of template, knowing that there's flexibility in how they'd approach it. So we shared a couple of different IDP examples and said, in essence, this is how goal setting can operate. It's one of a number of ways. The timeline, we went to the breakdown of all those key parts of it, the process, the outcome, the long, and there's a couple of people involved in this. But when we looked at it from a kind of biopsychosocial point of view, then it branched it out, even just looking at social. Some people had great conversations around the social needs and barriers that they'd experienced last year and needs going forward that would help or hinder this goal. And in doing that, you had some people saying, well, sometimes it's the contract, sometimes it's the pressure of the growing sport and the perception of what they should act like. And that's when different people shared that actually one of my goals, from kind of an aside, once they thought they had permission to share a non-football one, was that to build a house.
How often will you then go back to that in a formal checking in way? So those informal conversations will be ongoing of, how's the house coming on?
Yeah.
Have you laid another 5 bricks or whatever they're doing? But
yeah.
How often will you have a more formal check-in on it?
Yeah, so we talked about this, and I think the typical ones that float around, the typical timelines that float around are 3 or 4 times a year, or a season, rather than to look at where the pinch points are and actually where's the space for people to grow within. So they're not feeling like we had this meeting in August and I need to show improvement by October. So it's an ongoing support structure, say on a weekly basis, where they're put into a piece of software and they have kind of the freedom to update post meeting how they feel they're moving. We have all the different analytics that support them if people need those to go to, be it the GPS or stats or video. So 3 or 4 times is what we have at the moment, but that's coupled with opportunities to connect on a weekly basis. So even if they're 10-minute slots, even if they're half an hour bi-weekly, there's opportunities that are in there that are probably halfway between an organic corridor conversation and a sit-down structured meeting. So they're probably an optional session over a course of a month, but you will allocate a half an hour to sit down and have that chat, and you can bring whatever you want. So it's not a rigid on-pitch one. It's not going to be a presentation, but it's somewhere in between. So we're kind of ironing out what that would look like. But yeah, it's really interesting. And it's also telling us a lot about how they want it to be driven as individuals. Some will have a long-term goal. Some will have their personal, like we had a couple of girls last year who from a personal angle wanted to have relationships and get married and, look at family situations. And that was important to us as well as them, because, happy human, happy player, not equal design, but, in that ethos, a way of thinking. And so it was important for us to understand how we could be flexible. And even already, I hear the manager having conversations with players around, do you need an extra day here? Would that help with adjustment periods or international windows that are kind of a bit hectic? So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting. So did you see this link I talked about, this Twitter feed from Adam?
I did. And I thought it was interesting in terms of some of the points that they made in there. There was a culture of caring and mateship. That I find an interesting one at times, and certainly within high performance sport, I certainly know very successful teams that definitely were not mates. But they came together for a common purpose, a common goal. And when they were at work, that was what they did. They were really clear on the focus, very extrinsic driven. I think there's certainly some bits in there that I thought were interesting, but I think what was so I quite like number 8. Trust was central. Everybody had kind of trust in each other and the connection between coaching staff and players. I think that was a really important one, that they're all going in the same direction. They're really clear on what and how they're trying to achieve it, and that everybody is trying to achieve the same thing.
Yeah.
What it sprung up to me was all of these come together. And I think sometimes you could probably have a different approach on some of those, but it's the collective of those that come together that create something quite powerful. It did also make me think of survivorship bias. And I'm sure there were some other teams through that period who may have done, don't know clearly, but may have done all of that and not been winners.
Okay.
So therefore, does that make them not successful?
Can you give us an expansion on survivorship bias in case people don't know?
Yeah. So I listened to a podcast. I can't remember which one it was, but it had Paul McGinley, the golfer, on. And he was talking about when he was Ryder Cup captain. And he thought about these 15 different things and the environment, bringing in guest speakers, who the pairs were, data analysis. And the outcome was they won the Ryder Cup that year. But what we don't do is we didn't go into, well, the USA team, they might have thought about those 15 things, the pairings, the data analysis, the culture, the environment, the guest speakers, and not one. So I think sometimes we often see that kind of iceberg analogy, don't we? We see what's on top, but underneath everybody is doing this. And I think it's worth, if you listen to this, just go and have a look at survivorship bias, but it may or may not be relevant in this case. But it does often make me think, generally, the world's best coaches know about this kind of thing. Yeah. And many will be doing that, or subtly different versions of that. Nobody does something wildly different, I don't think, in high performance sport. Yeah. So if you've got 10 other nations doing that or thereabouts, but you can only get one winner, well, that's just the nature of sport. You know, you just filter to get one winner. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing that. But yeah, that was one of the other things that kind of sprung out for me.
But you know what's really interesting as well is, do you know, like, I'd have to go back over the book now since it was since I read it, but it just sprung to mind, Legacy, when Kerr wrote about it. And a lot of people read that and came back and we thought, like, I've loads of silver bullets here now. It's like, well, it's not the purpose of all the silver bullets. But anyway, is it a case of the aftermath? It's like that retrospective reflection on, you know, well, we did this, this, and this, but whilst they're in the middle of it, were they aware of the impact? Were they aware? Did they pause and go, well, say the number one was punctuality, and if you were half an hour early or late, this kind of thing, and everyone wanted to be there, you know. And I do think of burnout a little bit, and I do think about this first in, last out mentality, that you could be on the cusp there. But if you're in the middle of something and not everybody, like we could probably guarantee that over the course of the years, not everybody was like that. So now you have somebody reading that going, well, how do I get all my players there? And how do I get them to all be half an hour early? But you can't make them be that way. you know, you can restrain it to say you need to be half an hour early, but it's knowing really what they look like in your environment, and actually if they're not all there at that time, then just having an awareness but not trying to force them. And you know, sometimes you could be in an environment that actually is a bit discombobulated and all over the place, but actually some things are working really well, but because it's not on this list, you might be go, oh gosh, I need to veer it back over that way.
I mean, everybody being there half an hour early is just changing the start time to be half an hour earlier.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, that's all that's happened there.
yeah, yeah,
And,
it's very interesting.
you know, but I guess ultimately the message for me really is create an environment that people want to be in.
Yeah. And they want to come a little bit earlier, or like we were talking about with
Yeah.
piano, they want to learn, they want to find other ways to, you know, teach themselves and have a bit of enjoyment. It matters and feel good at this. And yeah, so.
Interesting, but he's done another thread today, so maybe we'll get into that as well next week.
Oh, wicked. Cool.
Mm.
Or I could be playing a piano song for you. Who knows? Or you could be playing the piano, or you might not be here because you have no internet because you had to pay for a piano. Anyway, join us next week. Bum, bum, bum. Right, I love it. Where are we at? We're at Coach Convo on Twitter, as you may know, but if not, give us a follow. Check out some of the previous episodes. coachconversation@gmail.com. Email us if you want to have a chat, even offline, or bring some topics to the forefront. We are open to those. Have a nice weekend, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.